The balance between childlike wonder and the adult-like appeal is something of a thinner line to balance on. Taking yourself seriously and being able to keep some sort of innocent charm in a non-distracting way is something that I have somewhat alluded to in my other Breath of the Wild and Nintendo-related videos, but today I want to talk about the core of why the rubber fish suit from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, despite not being the toughest or the most useful set of armor, has become my favorite in the game. The Legend of Zelda is all about adventure, new discoveries, and small hidden nooks, and while the game has all but flipped its format multiple times, these elements have all but remained consistent. Still, as a child, and now still as an adult, something that I've always been drawn to was a much more mature Zelda. Not in that it was literally more dark, gritty, or realistic, but just that it had a more freeform adventure. And while I loved the Zelda games I played growing up, the N64 Zeldas being my favorite, I don't think that the balance was ever struck so well until Breath of the Wild. The engine and graphics look better than near anything else I've played on the Switch. The vistas sometimes inspire awe, the setting is dark without the game trying to force it on you. The world is just as it is. Something I also think is a main staple in the Zelda world, though, is its undeniably unique charm and quirks. Dampé from Ocarina of Time, and Tingle from Majora's Mask, and the always slightly unsettling character designs from many of the other games, such as Twilight Princess. There's a very clear level of otherworldly fantasy and uncanny strangeness that stays home in Zelda games, alongside the often, while typical, serious and weighty plots. I would be lying if I didn't immediately feel the need to talk about this too, after watching probably 50 or more reactions to the Breath of the Wild sequel's announcement trailer. Seeing the excitement on all their faces the same way I got excited when I saw the reveal, that excitement exists for a reason, and it's not just something home to Zelda, but to many of the other Nintendo franchises. I talk about this basically any time that I drag Nintendo into the room, but my other favorite franchises, the Mother series, the original Donkey Kong Country series, and the Pikmin series all managed to bring this exact level of Nintendo flair to the series they inhabit. For a game about monkeys, Donkey Kong Country songs can make me quite emotional. There's a deep sort of nuance there, a balance between the quirk and the heart. Pikmin is probably the most existential and philosophically interesting series Nintendo has ever created. Desolate, deep, dark, emotional, and especially with Pikmin 2, is a very brooding game. Mixed in with all of that, though, are these cute Pikmin designs, Rareware-style voice acting, and classically comic-y or cartoony sound effects that are splashed in. In fact, there's so many of them splashed in, and many of them being Easter eggs or references, that another YouTuber, Scruffy, has made 2 different videos that are extremely interesting going into detail on them. And finally, the Mother series, particularly Mother 3. Wow, that's just basically a huge can of worms. It turns the quirk and heart that all of the previous examples have, both up to 11, in opposite directions without tearing the project in either way. I think this is the successful feeling Nintendo goes for when they set out to make a game. They set out for fun, and then they let the humanity fall into place. And so sometimes this creative freedom and joy shows itself where other game developers and publishers wouldn't dare. So I think that's why Breath of the Wild was such a wild success, and why I'm so happy, from first glance at least, that they will be creating a more risky and darker sequel to it, like Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time. So in this great mood, in this great balance, why the rubber fish suit? Well, excluding DLC outfits, I think that the rubber fish suit best represents this Nintendo balance and quirk that I love. Just think about some of the things that make Breath of the Wild such an interesting world. I think it is all the mystery specifically. Sure, there are the shrines, but I mean more than that. Things like the ancient ruins scattered around, the 8th statue, cool artifacts, and things that don't serve direct quest or plot relevance, or harbor much explanation at all. The mystery leads people to really think about these pasts and reasons for why or how they were built in regards to lore. Heck, there are whole channels that dedicate much of their catalog to looking at Zelda lore. It's because the mystery and intrigue is what quietly builds the beautiful landscapes around them. Nothing is more unfun than an open world without a soul. This is the soul that breathes into the wild. So the quirky, maybe kind of dumb rubber fish helmet suit thing is kind of emblematic of this, I think. How it was created. It makes me wonder, how was it created? Why? And what led the creator to design it as so? When you get struck by lightning, sometimes the tail on the head moves a little bit. It's downright hilarious looking to me, but it doesn't seem hilarious in a cartoony, wow, there's a fish on my head type of moment. It does look like real armor that makes sense in the Zelda world. It's designed, stylized, and made practical. It isn't just silly. The colors and look of the helmet are, in my opinion, to be taken very seriously as a suit of armor that fits well into the lore. Breath of the Wild is serious and stylized, silly but realistic. There's a level of comic and a level of life, and honestly, I think that is the balance that keeps me around with Nintendo, but definitely helped me with Breath of the Wild. You see, I have about 345 hours in Breath of the Wild. I've done everything except get all of the Korok seeds, basically, and there's a big reason why this was the time sink it was for me. After all, I didn't get this game when it came out, March 2017. I got it just this last Christmas. That's because through my parents' divorce, and my hate for my crushing college classes, and the general anxiety that my YouTube channel wouldn't go somewhere soon enough to save me, there was a place to unwind and live in. Somewhere I could care about, that I took seriously, but was goofy enough to take the edge off of the crummy situation I was finding myself in. It was hard to react to the separation, and it was tough to listen to how my mom and dad were feeling when I spoke with them, and so I didn't escape. I bared with it. But even as just a game, it helped me not feel overwhelmed by the sudden situation and the realization that even if I was home for Christmas, there wouldn't be a Christmas waiting for me. The air felt so thick and dark, and in the last few days leading up to the New Year's, my sister and my mom went on a long-planned trip, and my dad, no longer living in the house, was spending New Year's with his new girlfriend. What was I doing? I was alone, eating Dairy Queen and playing Breath of the Wild in the living room, in the house, on New Year's, all by myself. I'm sure that with this situation, I could say it could have been any other game if I wanted to be cynical, but I really do think that Breath of the Wild wormed its way into my heart in a way that only select Nintendo games can do. The same ones that resonated with my childhood up until now. I think that it keeps a lot of my feelings from becoming contempt, and instead made me release them in a healthy way, so I could consistently, maturely approach the situations with a level head. Because, at least speaking for myself, something I like when I'm going through something isn't always something completely disconnected from reality, but connected enough to relate and disconnected enough to release. And yeah, if I had to sum down that core feeling, that sort of Zelda balance, and even the sort of general Nintendo vibe that exists in some franchises, then I have to point to Rubber Fish Suit in Breath of the Wild. Its funny design is a small bit of unique style and quirk. It's one of the many flavors to the Zelda world. I hope this didn't come across as too convoluted, but that is basically why the rubber suit is my favorite armor in the game. Thanks so much once again, Whizbang2093, Akio, Frillneck Lizard, Thomas Greenway, CJ, and all of my other patrons who keep continuing to support me financially. For May, and so far on track for June, I made more than half of my YouTube income from your guys' support, so I can't stretch how much it means and how greatly and heavily I appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching to the end. I hope that you're having a good day, a good week, and I'll see you next Friday.